Accusations of a field in crisis or at a crossroads. Tensions have been rising between autism researchers and the community their work is intended to benefit, particularly on social media.
It has been almost 3 years since the Ford government announced it was revamping Ontario's autism program. Since then, the wait list for children to get treatment has almost doubled. And the new program, which has faced a number of delays, is still far from off the ground.
And despite her school spelling out what was wrong, she's still on a waiting list, leaving her struggling with thoughts of suicide.
Quite desperate and I just need help.
1 in 3 children are diagnosed with autism. However, it's still a very underfunded and under-researched condition. In this documentary, I'm going to speak to people struggling with autism to try and debunk the stereotypes and understand the way that their brain works. I'm actually going to have written questions.
Okay, cool, fine. Oh yeah, next.
Going down it.
Oh, we will, don't you worry. Okay, you're going to slide down it, Loki?
I'll go first.
Go for it. Wow, that was good.
I jumped.
So I'm Alice and I have a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome. And this is Izzy who has a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder.
Hello, I'm Adam. I was diagnosed with autism when I was 4 years old.
So if you want to introduce yourself and then your connection to autism.
My name is Maya. I got diagnosed with autism a year and a half ago.
So my name's Dee Booth. I work as a sleep fairy and parent rescue. I work with families who are struggling with their children's behaviour or sleep or toilet issues. I do work with quite a few families whose children are autistic, undiagnosed quite often, or have ADHD. My link to autism is that my son, who is 7, we believe he's autistic, and we're waiting for an assessment and a diagnosis.
And when did you start to notice signs of or traits of autism?
I'd say from about 6 months old, she was struggling to make eye contact and she wouldn't understand sort of social cues and things like that. And then when she was about 3.5, she started to run off and didn't understand the dangers of public places or anything like that. Little things like lining up her toys and being very particular about routine. She likes everything kind of logical and in order, and if anything isn't like that, it causes her to just go into meltdown basically.
Yeah.
So then I contacted my health visitor when she was about 5 and got her put on the waiting list. And yeah, we've only been newly diagnosed.
Yeah. So when did you start noticing signs that you may be autistic, or did you not? Was it an external person that thought maybe you should?
The thing is, I had absolutely no clue until a week before my diagnosis, because my mum didn't let me know that I'm going to be getting diagnosed. But the moment I started doing the diagnosis for autism and got it, I looked kind of more into it and my behaviour and it made a lot of sense, because for a long time I always felt I think much different than people my age, because I personally see autism as a label for how I think, and that I just think a bit differently than other people and feel emotions a bit differently. So me being confusing my emotions, my thought process with different situations, it made a lot of sense afterwards.
Did you start noticing those things doing the puzzles repeatedly and stuff when he was really young?
Yeah, he was about 2. His talking was really good really quickly, so he was quite advanced with his speech, and then there were other things that he was really, really good at. But we also noticed that he's got that semi-monotone of autistic children. I mean, others more obvious, but we notice it in him.
Yeah.
And the way he socialises and plays, he's never really played with toys. He has toys like a train track. He'll put a train track together, and then that's it. So those are the kinds of things that we notice.
I think it was a mixture of things. I definitely know I am autistic now, even if it wasn't for a diagnosis because I talk a lot. But at the time, I think my parents did see some things that made them think I was autistic. I'm not sure what those were, quite frankly, back then. But I think my siblings did help, because they had already been diagnosed. That did help me get diagnosed quicker.
When doing my research, I couldn't find much into the small details of an assessment. However, all I could find was that in order to even be put on the waitlist, you needed a referral from a GP or an educational needs coordinator, and this itself could take months. I spoke to my interviewees about what their experience with an assessment was like. What did you have to do in order to get the diagnosis?
Well, at first, when I got sent over to CAMS, I had kind of like a therapy session, like a conversation with people, and afterwards they let my mum know, based on what they've heard from my mum and me, that they think I could have autism.
First of all, I went to my health visitor, who went through a big questionnaire with me, and then based on that questionnaire and your answers, you got given a certain amount of points, and then she put in a referral to CAMS. That got sent away, and we then got another load of forms that we had to fill out about kind of Izzy and her personality and how she is. Send that away. We got another set of forms that I had to give to her teacher in her school and other people that know her, so they could fill their bit out as well. Send that back, and then we got an appointment.
During my diagnosis, they showed me it was just kind of like a test on a laptop, and I think they based the diagnosis a bit on that, and they gave me little triangles to kind of put in order. They also gave me, which this was really odd to me at that moment, they gave me a book without any words and I had to make up a story based on the images, and it was just impossible. It was about flying frogs or something.
And then I took her into another room with someone else, and then obviously watched how she was playing and how she was interacting, and kind of the things that she enjoys doing and not enjoying, and kind of how she was socially as well, so things like talking and starting conversations, how she was in kind of social interaction kind of situations. And then from there we pretty much got told, yes, she does have autism.
Do you think that it will help him more in the future having that diagnosis?
I think it will help him to understand, when he becomes aware of differences between him and neurotypical kids, then I think it will be helpful then, and I think it will help him to understand how sometimes he struggles with.
There he is.
Oh, there you are.
How he struggles with things. So a few years ago he did a trampolining competition, and he didn't like it, so he literally just curled into a little ball in the corner and hid under a coat because he couldn't, for whatever reason.
Do you think that because you didn't know maybe that you were autistic until you were diagnosed, that not having the diagnosis didn't really affect you that much?
I think it did. I think if I got diagnosed as a child, I would get more support in school, because in primary school I got into a lot of trouble for never being able to sit still, always talking, always kind of running, being energetic. And then in secondary school I had a lot of troubles with my mental health due to just thinking differently and not being able to process stuff like other people kind of. With my diagnosis afterwards though, I noticed that teachers and a lot of other people started treating me like I didn't understand anything, because that's kind of an opinion about autism.
Yeah. What are the biggest effects of his life? I know you mentioned he's homeschooled.
He is home educated, so we had thought about doing home education even when I was pregnant, because I knew he was going to be a summer-born boy, and so I knew that he'd then be on the back foot. When he was about 3, we noticed that he would hyper-focus on things, he got really into puzzles, and so every day he would get out 10 puzzles, which were quite complicated puzzles, actually he was under 3 and he was doing 3 to 6 year old puzzles, and he would just cover the whole entire floor with them and do that repeatedly. So I think we've decided to home educate him because we're pretty sure from things that he's done, he would really struggle in a classroom setting surrounded by 30 kids. I think the level of noise would be difficult for him. He struggles to process instructions. So like when he does group swimming lessons, all the other kids are told once, they go off and do it, and he's just there bobbing up and down the water, not taking anything in. So I think he struggles in situations where neurotypical kids would be totally fine.
Yeah. So for you as a child, how did that affect your life?
So things like making friends and kind of the school kind of environment I found really difficult. Being able to talk to people and start conversations and eye contact, that kind of thing I found quite difficult. Academically, I struggled with things like exams and coursework and things like that, and I got really anxious, and it kind of affected me that way.
Do you think that if those things were picked up earlier and you got diagnosed earlier as a child, it would have helped you more through school and through life and things like that?
Definitely, absolutely, definitely, yeah, because a lot of, in year 7, year 6, I had a lot of troubles with school and learning. I also had troubles with learning with certain teachers, their teaching methods. I also had a lot of stress in school, like a lot of like kind of episodes where I would come back from school and just sleep for like the whole day because I just couldn't be social anymore.
As for support, there are two main strategies. The first is ABA. This stands for Applied Behavioural Analysis. This is when social skills are taught through a type of therapy. The second is social skills training. This is where people with autism are taught their social skills through role-play games. I spoke to my interviews about what support they thought they got and whether they thought it was effective or not.
I'm not optimistic about getting any support at all, because I don't think there's enough out there, and I feel like his need is probably not as great as a lot of other people's. Because I mean, there's a couple of kids that I work with who don't talk at all and may never do, and so they're not even getting the support they need. So I just don't think we will.
Yeah, I mean, they've been more supportive now that we've got a diagnosis, whereas before they were kind of, they had a plan, but they weren't really sure if it was working for her. Whereas now we kind of know what is kind of going on with Izzy, whereas we put together a more personalised plan and support for her.
The moment I got put on CAMS, I didn't have any practically support. Only after like a year I got counselling in school again, and then after my autism diagnosis I did something called art therapy for over a year as well. So just like therapy just with art.
Do you think that was helpful?
Yeah, it was really helpful. I think a lot of autistic people should do therapy because it's just good to have like an external person you can talk to about your thought process and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think there should have been more support, to be honest, in school, because it was quite a lot, especially in the secondary school. My siblings did have respite, which was something that was really beneficial. However, one of my siblings couldn't, they stopped having respite a few years ago because of, just after COVID.
I don't think COVID helped. I think the COVID kind of lockdown made the waiting list longer for everybody. I mean, we were quite lucky that we were kind of diagnosed and seen quite quickly. I mean, I've got friends that have been on the waiting list for 4 or 5 years. But it kind of depends. I mean, sometimes you've really got to push them for an appointment. You've got to keep bringing up, you've got to keep chasing, you've got to keep emailing. So I kind of feel like we've been quite lucky with our diagnosis.
I do think that with COVID, a lot of autistic people were affected by it. They were locked inside. They weren't allowed to go out, and that's quite devastating. There was a lot of issues with the diagnosis process. I think it probably did make it take a lot longer for people. But that's on top of already the massive cuts that the Tory government's been doing to all the services that autistic people rely on.
I think also like one of the main reasons is a lot of people after COVID are waiting for diagnoses with CAMS. It takes a while to get diagnosed. I'm still waiting for my diagnosis for example, ADHD, and I've been waiting for like 2-3 years nearly and still nothing.
Yeah.
So I think that's a major factor in that, because a lot of people can't go privately, they can't afford it.
It's estimated that the social cost of people with autism in the UK is a staggering 32 billion a year. However, annual research is only funding a mere £4 million into research.
I think they're underfunded. I think they're understaffed. The training required, because I looked into it actually, I think I worked out I'd have to do 10 years worth of study. So you have to be, I think, a consultant psychologist or psychiatrist. And then on top of that, you have to do an additional 2 or 3 years of training. So for people to do that much training, they have to A, put a lot of money into it, and B, have the patience and the desire. And I think not that many people are willing to go through that to probably work for the NHS. And so the people who have done it, they want to go privately, because when you pay a private psychiatrist, it's like £600 an hour.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a big part of it.
Service that deals with neurodivergent people in Woking Borough Council anyway, it's run like a private company. It's still, but it's being run bureaucratically on purpose, and it's all designed in order so the councils and the government don't have to cough up the money that's necessary.
It's estimated that there are 4 times as many men diagnosed with autism than women. This is due to the underfunding of research into symptoms in women. And I spoke to Maya about how being a woman with autism has affected her life and what she thinks needs to change.
Do you think that more research should be done into women with autism to make that diagnosis easier?
I think research should be done with people who are low kind of functioning with autism, people who are high functioning with autism, both men and women, just to see differences, whether men also have it just like thinking wise, or maybe men display different kind of signs of autism basically.
Do you think that if there was more knowledge around the differences between men and women, it would make diagnosis quicker or easier?
Definitely, because then it can be found, like, not found, I'm not sure how to say this, like it can be, found, I think actually, found in people a bit earlier when they're younger. Like teachers can notice quicker, parents can notice quicker if there's more studies based on it, because certain behaviours people just don't assume it's to do with autism.
Yeah. He's very happy playing with himself now.
He's fine on his own. Yeah. And when he's got friends, like now that he's 7, he'll play with them. But where most children start playing with other children at about 3, he definitely didn't. Mm. And he doesn't do any imaginative play, like as in small world play, where his imagination is amazing. Like he'll make dens and slides and other stuff, but like to get involved in a little world of his own, or with like the trains, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I mean, you don't mind the slides. I know if it was like me or Zoe's parents, we'd definitely be told like, put it all away, put it all away.
And I think I probably would have done 5 or 10 years ago. Maybe if my daughter had done it, it would have done my head in.
The thing that he was most interested in was his slides. He had made one from the top bunk of his bed down to his bedroom floor, and he proposed to us the idea of making one from the 2nd floor of his house down to the ground floor. Throughout the day, this was all he was focused on.
It's stuck.
Oh, really? With which bit?
The slide.
Oh no.
Okay. I need a hand or 2.
Okay. Or 2.
Because I feel like I've grown as a parent over the years, and I am more open to his diversity and his differences, and I've noticed that when we try and squash them, then he ends up having meltdowns.
Now time to climb up the way
You should be fine.
I slide down the balusters a lot. Jump on it.
Okay, you can slide down it maybe? Go for it.
Wow. I jump.
I would like to say that you know, being autistic is not what people think it is. You're not any less capable or any more capable than people. It's like, and it can be completely different from person to person. I'm not very good at maths, but I'm, you know, people would say I'm good at public speaking.
Yeah, anything you'd like to add? No? Perfect. You're quite shy, aren't you? She doesn't talk very much. If there's someone new, like she doesn't.
Yeah, that's understandable.
She goes non-verbal, don't you?
I've seen a lot of characters who are autistic be perceived and portrayed as bad people, which is, it's just not really
wrong.
good. Yeah,
Wrong, yeah.
Yeah.